Hi, this is a Map Business Online video that supports a blog I'm writing about market analysis, talking about establishing new markets around the country. So one of the things that I think is important, and this is a little bit map geeky here that we're going to get into, but it's establishing those cities around the country that are the most lucrative and being able to set up territories relatively quickly around those points on the map. And it requires us to take a couple of steps that are a little bit map geeky. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in the city limits layer first. We're going to add the city limits layer to our map. City limits put the city actual boundaries on the map, and it gives us a data window view of the city limits layer and lets us kind of think about the demographic makeup of each city so we can determine which cities make the most sense. So we go down here to more data, down in the very bottom right. We click that, which opens up a little database management tool, and it lets us access demographic data. Population is a good example. We bring that over. And median income, which is further down the list. We've got an awful lot of data in there now, so you'll see all those median income household layers, and we can bring over median income as a layer. And you will note that there's these household income levels in groups of $10,000 all the way up to the higher income layers here. We're going to deal with those in just a minute. So first, let me talk about setting the data columns for that perspective view. And now you can see we can click population at the top of the column there, and that lets us toggle back and forth between the least and the most populated areas. So the most populated area is New York City as a city limit with that many people in it. And you can see that's the median household income for New York City. And if we toggle again on the top of the median household income column, then we can arrange our cities by median household income, and that's West Hartford Hills, Texas as the highest level of income. And that may or may not be what you want to include on your market analysis. So another way to handle these this analysis is to get into some of the nitty-gritty of that demographic data, and we can do that by combining layers or making formulas. Maybe you want to take a ratio of population to median income, and that might be helpful for your analysis. You'll know as you go through your analysis what makes the most sense for you. So at the city limits layer level, I can go to map and data, which is that blue box that hovers right here, click the edit gear on the city limits layer, open up that first general editing tool, and go to manage calculated data columns. So calculated data columns is going to allow us to build, we're going to add a data column. We're going to build a data column based on those high income. So let's say high income households. And we want greater than, so I'm going to use the greater than sign, 150K per year in median household income. So let's travel down that data set, and there they are. There's all the income, and there's the breakdown. 150,000. I can hold the control key down and get them both over, move them to the right. I'm not going to do a division or multiply option here. I'm just going to sum. So we're going to click add that data column as soon as we make sure that number is correct and that we don't have to worry about decimals. Great. Okay. So we're going to add that data column to our analysis. Now, when I go back to my map and my data window view, I can click more data, just like we did before, and select calculated data columns and bring that into my analysis, which I think that's exposing those cities that have a large amount of households with high income, which is different than just the median income per city. So now we've got our calculated data column is high income here. So I'm going to click it to jigger the response and get the high income families on the top, just for a look, because that's what we're doing. We're looking at our data and trying to determine what the best options are. And we can see that there's, of the 30,000 cities, that here's the higher income levels. And maybe we just want to create a data set. We do want to create a data set of just the top earners. So I'm going to go into my calculated data. I want to find the highest income families where there are greater than 20,000 households in the city that have the high income value. And you can see when I do that, that limits my cities from 30,000 down to 27. So those 27 cities probably are the ones you want to make sure are in there. Now, you can go back and look at it again, and I encourage you to do that. Think it through. Make sure you've got all the data that you require. When you think it's all set, I'm going to go through an exercise next where we want to represent these cities on the map as points on the map so we can build territories around them and conduct our analysis city by city. Which you can't do from this list. You've got to get it back as a point layer into Map Business Online. So it's an export. I'm going to export that out. Bada boom. We're going to save that as city limits for video. I'm going to save that on my desktop. And I've already got a file out there that says that, so I'm going to just override that. And then we're going to go back to our overall map view, and we just want to put points on the map. To do that, we click plot data, which is how we would click add any points to the map. And I'm just going to grab my data set. I'm not going to get all fancy with it. I am just going to grab it and pull it in. And that will put those points on the map. So now I've got 27 cities on the map. There they all are. And I don't really want to color code them at this point in time. I just want to view them on the map. Now you've got, you can actually go in and make those symbols a little smaller. You could change the colors and screw around with the symbols if you want. That's another video. So now I want a little 3 or 4 or 5 mile circle around each one of those city centers, so I can analyze the zip codes around those city centers and get a sense of the total population, the total median income, all of that information that I think might be pertinent to my analysis for marketing. So I'm going to have to go in and change. If I do it by zip code, I can go in and adjust the zip codes and do calculated data columns around the zip code layer. I think I'd rather do it by territory once I've got some circles around here and I can build some territory. So what I would do next, I guess I would do that. I would go into the zip code layer and I would create a calculated data column, add calculated data column at the zip code level of household income greater than 50K. All of those calculated data columns are done by map layer. So every time you want to analyze based on a new sort of map view, as we get into zip codes are a little bit more granular, then you need to have that there for the analysis. So let's go to the market analysis tool next, because what I want now is I want a 5 mile circle around each one of my cities. And market analysis, which is right here, will let you do mass functions on certain things. So an imported data layer, we can search data from multiple locations and then create a marketing list or a territory. And what I really want to do is just create a marketing list, because my intent here is just to make a 5 mile circle around each one. And I can check this box. I can do up to 200 locations at one time. And so I'm going to click next. And I'm just going to click to search the city limits that I brought in and create a marketing list X, which I'm not really going to use. I'm more going to use the circles more than anything else. And that gives me, if I zoom in to any given location here, it gives me a 5 mile circle around each one. One of the things I like to do is to clear data with the transparency tool so I can see through it. So I'll do that. Then I'm going to take one territory and set it up. So I'm going to select the circle, search the zip code layer, create it, name it, territory. This is somewhere in Texas. We'll call it Texas 1. Probably best to name it as a city. I don't really have the city right there, but let's just name it something. There are the zip codes. There's the territory. Now we've got a data window view. We can go into more data, and we can get rid of things we don't need, primary county, primary state, and filler. In this case, we just don't need that stuff. And we can bring in things like calculated demographics, like population, and let's go to calculated data column and bring in that information. Set that now. And now we can go down below and we can look at our calculated data. So we have 209 families in this whole territory area, a 5-mile circle. And again, I like to go in and adjust my map view so I got some transparency. So that's starting to give us a sense of every territory and how much we've got for potential based on our median income calculation. Now it's a question of really going through each one of those one at a time and thinking it through. Let's go back to this area in Chicago. Well, they're calling that Chicago. It's not really Chicago in my opinion. And we would, again, select that zip code layer to build a territory, call it territory Illinois 1, create it, and now we've got a calculation of the number of families within that particular territory. And you can go through this process all around the country, and as you do that, you will start to gain a sense of what makes the most sense in terms of your market analysis, what's good for your company, what are some of the areas that you feel have the most potential for your market expansion. And by the time you're done, you'll have a complete list which you can then review, check for errors, make sure it's got all the areas you thought it would have, understand why they might not be there, and you've got a template from which to work to build your market analysis forward and make some great decisions about where your next best opportunity is going to be. Go to mapbusinessonline.com and take our free trial.